And the lights go out as away they go. It's a pretty decent start from Vernon. The best start of all from Adrian Johnson from the second row of the grid. He's trying to work his way through the front row men into turn one, and it is Vernon that leads. Johnson's level with Jake Micklewright, and what it's about 4-5 abreast, almost in the middle there. Richardson had to avoid going onto the grass. Ben Hansey's on the inside. He's ahead of Jordan Johnson, and he's alongside now, I think, ahead of Ian Tomlinson as well. So the three quick drivers are there or thereabouts, but Martin Vernon's hanging on. Johnson, Adrian Johnson that is, Johnson Senior around the outside to get second from Micklewright. Then it's Lloyd Huggins in fourth. Tomlinson's back ahead of Hansey in fifth. And then it's three abreast a bit further back as Matthew Short has lost a significant amount of positions. But it's Vernon from Johnson. On the inside is Huggins. On the outside is Hansey, who must have got back past Tomlinson. Has he, or has Tomlinson gone up the inside? There is Tomlinson, so he's alongside Hansey again, who gets into the back of Micklewright, who in turn gets into the back of Lloyd Huggins, who gets very sideways. And I think for Martin Vernon, he is still leading the way, but behind Johnny Palmer, it's side by side all the way.
Yeah, almost. The 40 car nerfed into a half spin there by Jordan Johnson, who obviously wants to get by Ben Hansey sooner rather than later. But you sense both Hansey and Johnson will work together. Hansey right round the outside of, I think, Short on that occasion. Gave Short enough racing room, but clearly it's the Hansey car that is so well set up that it can deal with the middle part of the road through Siemens and get good drive off the corner. So Hansey and Johnson are through, and around the outside there going the blue and white car of Jake Micklewright, number 32.
It's now Adrian Johnson that leads the way. So Johnson Senior leads on the way up towards the final corner. Ian Tomlinson second, so he's made good progress. The driver who finished third earlier on today and yesterday. Martin Vernon's done a good job to hang on. He's there in third, ahead of Ben Hansey and Jordan Johnson, the two quickest drivers this weekend. And Oak Richardson's up next, then Lloyd Huggins, Matthew Neal and Nico Favo, and Jake Micklewright dotted lost the time as Ben Hansey gets very sideways out of the first corner, but he's managed to hang on ahead of Jordan Johnson in all of that. So this is a really good opportunity, I would suggest, for Ian Tomlinson to have a go at winning one of these 5 Club Racing races, because he's right behind Adrian Johnson. If he can get past him and make a gap before Hansey and Jordan Johnson come through, that would be very beneficial. He's right on the tail now. The race leader pulls out of the tow as the battles behind continue, but it's side by side for the lead of the race. There they are, and Ian Tomlinson, after 2/3 so far this weekend, has taken the lead of the race.
Side by side between Hansey and the 99 car briefly there of Martin Vernon, but slotting by on Vernon's left-hand side were both Ben Hansey and Jordan Johnson. They've been glued to one another for most of the weekend when it came to racing action, and this time in the reversed of the finishing order from earlier on today, with Hansey ahead. But we do know that Jordan Johnson can fashion more than one overtaking opportunity to get past. There goes the 17 car of Oak Richardson, forever in 4th place earlier on today, but he again has more speed than his current 6th place would show. Down the long Tom Price straight then and into the hairpin, having a long look at the inside is Ben Hansey, then on the number 22 car of Adrian Johnson, and he got through. And Johnson on Johnson now for 3rd position. Jordan making quick work, in fact, of the former race leading black number 22 car. So they'll all be chasing Ian Tomlinson now, heading for the left-hander at bus stop for the second time.
I suspect once Adrian Johnson knew that his son Jordan was coming through, was going to give him as much room as possible. And Jordan now is challenging Hansey up towards the first corner. Now, are these two going to work together to catch Ian Tomlinson, who's 1.3 seconds up the road, or are they going to scrap it out for second place? Well, at this stage, Jordan Johnson's just following Hansey through. Oak Richardson's 4th now. And for Adrian Johnson, he dropped a significant number of places there. He hasn't been shown on the timing screens, and it looks like he may have gone missing, Johnny. Not sure if you spotted that.
There was a big cloud of dust, but that would have been after the line, so I was just trying to work out who may have run wide on the exit of turn 1, but it doesn't explain why.
He's
still there.
He's behind Richardson, yeah.
So it hasn't triggered the beam and pops up manually now, I assume by the timekeepers, into 5th position. Adrian Johnson, Hansey and the other Johnson, Jordan Jr., arriving into Rocket together. Not yet dueling for the race lead then. They have one car of Ian Tomlinson, the deep red, number 9, to still get by and then maybe start to extend the lead. Oak Richardson trying to go with them, and he's doing well at that challenge right now. Gap growing between fourth place Richardson and Adrian Johnson and the rest.
Yeah, so we've got the fast four then at the front. So it sort of took just under 2 laps really for that to happen, didn't it? Not very long. And again, Jordan Johnson not particularly challenging Ben Hansey at this stage, so I think he's waiting for them to catch in Tomlinson, and then he'll make a race of it for what will be a race victory then, rather than a battle for second position. Lots of battles further back as well. This is the battle for 10th. Jake Micklewright, who did start there on the front row of the grid, but dropped back much quicker than Martin Vernon did, so he's down there in 10th, battling with Nico Favo, and already Hansey and Johnson have caught the leader, Ian Tomlinson, as they complete 3 laps of what should be a 9-lap race.
So totally together, throw a blanket over them into turn number 1. Tomlinson, Hansey, Johnson, and Oak Richardson will be frustrated that he can't quite access the top 3 right now, particularly as they're racing with each other and not necessarily picking out the ideal racing lines. How cool was that from Jordan Johnson? I actually thought he was resting his arm on the side of the car, but it was actually a mirror adjustment that had got flicked back either through air resistance or turbulence or indeed a bit of contact, but there's not been close enough contact to bend a mirror back quite yet. They often say with street racing, it's the mirrors that are your gauge, as here comes up the outside, in fact, Ben Hansey to take the race lead. How late does Ian Tomlinson want to be on the brakes? Well, late enough, actually. He locked briefly the front left tyre there. We'll have to go around the outside of Rocket, and if Jordan Johnson places his car perfectly, he should be able to pick off Ian Tomlinson in all this same move. There's just no option for Tomlinson to pull between the 2 cars of Hansey and Johnson. And we have, well, back to our regular leaders again, although here comes Tomlinson to try and overtake the 2 of them. This could be an awesome overtake into Siemens if he gets it done. Hansey, I'm not sure if he's aware that Tomlinson is worming his way up the inside, but it's going to be a drag race down the Tom Price straight. And that's unfortunate for Ian Tomlinson. He wasn't able in the end to pick off either of them, but full marks for trying.
Cracking bit of racing that, wasn't it? And again, managing to do that without making any contact. So again, really good racing from the 5 Club Racing guys here. We saw some great racing at Croft, and once again here at Anglesey, a similar situation, and Johnson right on the tail of Ben Hansey as they turn left now into the bus stop. These top 2 have been racing really close over the last few seasons now, as Jordan Johnson's been improving, as Ben Hansey made reference to earlier. He's almost been the tutor for Jordan Johnson in their battles over the last few seasons, but now Jordan Johnson keen to beat Ben Hansey in the 2023 season as they turn their way through the banking. Now that Tomlinson's there in the tow, he's able to stick with these 2, and if anything happens in front, he'll be eager to get in front to the pair of them and take that win.
Making use of a double tow right now, which might be further beneficial, but he'll need to be close enough coming through Church. More bump drafting that we saw plenty of from Jordan Johnson on the rear of Ben Hansey, just tapping away at that rear bumper to make sure that Ben knows he's there, as if he's in any doubt. Having a glance in those green-backed mirrors just before he turned in, Ben Hansey at Rocket, but he knew the coast was clear, at least for the time being. Oak Richardson is pretty much with them now, so we could well have a quartet of cars for the win. Adrian Johnson, meanwhile, is under massive pressure from the birthday boy Lloyd Huggins, who had a good middle race of the weekend, and Huggins threatening for 5th position on the car that previously had the fastest lap. That is now, though, in the hands of race leader Ben Hansey.
Oak Richardson was a winner at Croft. Hasn't been with these 3 over the course of the weekend until now. And as Johnny said there, he's right in contention if anything happens ahead, which sees Ben Hansey in front, as was the case towards the end of the earlier race when he made that move on Jordan Johnson, where I think Jordan described himself as an idiot, didn't he, to Andy McEwen in the earlier race. So he'd like to get one up again on Ben Hansey, who turned their way left then through bus stop and up and across the line. So it's Hansey from Johnson, from Tomlinson, and then Richardson, and then a gap back to a similarly close battle between Adrian Johnson and Lloyd Huggins. Matthew Pettifather Neil not that far back, and Martin Vernon there in 8th now. But the leaders down into the banking then for the 6th time. We'll pick up on this battle behind, Johnny.
Yeah, so Huggins in the red car trying to hunt down, well, he's done that bit. He needs now to work out where his car is fastest to get by Adrian Johnson. But these 2 got together thankfully in a metaphorical sense, earlier today as well. They've been not too far apart with similar speeds from both cars. This time, though, Matthew Pennyfather Neal is a bit too distant, and even further back then to Martin Vernon, who previously led this race in the other white car. But Huggins, good run again on Adrian Johnson up the hill and can brake much later, perhaps too late. Is he going to make the corner at Rocket? Well, he runs way out wide, and that should give the advantage back to Adrian Johnson, but he can't jump ahead of the 14 car. And actually, it's Johnson now who's on the back foot, because here comes Pennyfather Neal to the inside line. No chance for Matthew to get through, though, in car 21, but it's bunched this whole field up and might be an opportunity for Martin Vernon to get back involved.
Probably best not to mention track limits in that overtake, is it? As they turn their way then towards the end of what is lap number 6 in this race. As Johnny said there, Martin Vernon can see this battle, but he's not involved in it at this stage as they turn their way off the Tom Price straight through the hairpin, and then they head back up towards the start and finish line. So it's Huggins then, whose birthday is today. They're in 5th position. Across the line have come the leaders. Well, let's watch this battle for 6th, because I thought Matthew Pennyfather Neal was having a challenge on Adrian Johnson. He takes a tighter line, slides his car up across the line, but he's still in there behind the Adrian Johnson driven 6th place car as it is now, since Lloyd Huggins made that move halfway through that lap.
And Huggins is starting to build a gap now back to Adrian Johnson. The problem for Huggins, though, is that Oak Richardson is way up the road. He gets a brief glimpse of the blue car, which is turning right through Church now, well ahead of Lloyd Huggins in the number 14. There's Huggins, the all black with the green mirrors of Adrian Johnson then, pursued by Matthew Pennyfather Neal, and the gap growing actually this time back to Martin Vernon and Martin Short, Matthew Short, not Martin Short. I'm mixing my names, first names and surnames now, but you can understand where I was going with the mistake. Nose to tail into the Rocket sequence of corners, and Pennyfather Neal has a quick car beneath him for this particular race. I wonder whether he's done some tweaks in the interval between this Switch 5 Club Mazda race and the previous one, because the 21 looks a little more rapid at the end of the day.
Yeah, chasing then after Adrian Johnson, who led at the end of the first lap. The 59-year-old truck driver from Gloucestershire, running there in 6th position currently. Has been racing Mazdas for 6 seasons now, and is there behind Lloyd Huggins, the driver with a little bit less experience from Hemel Hempstead. And they turn their way towards the end of lap 7 with just 2 further laps to go. And up front, Ben Hansey's had a big moment out of the final corner over the curbs. What I was going to say is he had pulled clear of Jordan Johnson, but that brief slide, he managed to save the slide, has meant that lead battle potentially is going to be back on over the final 2 laps. And again, they're out wide at the first corner, Johnny. Yeah,
kicking up the dirt and the dust way beyond the curb. You've got to be careful there that you don't ditch hook a wheel and potentially tear it off, because those runs back onto from the hard-edged side of the curb, much more ferocious on a car's handling than the delicate kind of tapered side of the curb that most are using. So it's nose to tail, more bump drafting from Jordan Johnson. Both seem comfortable with that, and Johnson trying to find now the outside line through School, which will be the inside line for Rocket. And how late can the 92 car brake? Well, Hansey's trying desperately to hang on via the outside line. That will become the inside line through Rocket out, of course. And again, really good racecraft from Ben Hansey to stay just enough ahead and fend off Jordan Johnson. And if Ian Tomlinson was a bit closer here, he could take advantage of this, a little bit like when he was railroaded for the race lead for Hansey at the time. But Tomlinson just couldn't poke his nose down the inside of a gap that was there alongside Jordan Johnson. So it's between these two, 45 seconds to go, and it's last lap board this time, I reckon. Yeah, 1 lap to go. And Ben Hansey still under threat then from Jordan Johnson. Hansey, the double champion. See the BS Motorsport team on the pit wall were eagerly watching to see how they came back into the view from the pit wall onto the international circuit to see if Ben Hansey, their driver, was still leading, and it is, but by the smallest of margins over Jordan Johnson.
as they come up towards the final corner. Again, Ian Tomlinson is with the top two, so he has a chance as they go on to the last lap with Hansey leading, Johnson in second, third Tomlinson. Richardson's the closest he's been all weekend, but not close enough really for him. He's not there, and now it's side by side for the lead. So Jordan Johnson up the outside into the banking, and that is as close I think you can get without making contact between the top two drivers, but I don't think it's worked out necessarily for Jordan Johnson.
More mirror adjustment, it looked like. I wonder whether Jordan actually flung his arm up there as well to say that was a bit naughty for Ben Hansey, but he was within his rights to be defending into the second corner at the banking. Maybe Jordan's complaint was that Ben was wider than he needed to be on the run into that tricky right-hander. Now they're going to be two abreast again. Jordan Johnson to the outside line. Hansey will have the inside line. Now they were in the reverse positions a couple of laps ago. So can Jordan Johnson stay there for the inside? Oh, he's off the road, and there's possibly the definite contact now as well between Johnson and Hansey, so it's getting a little untidy out front for the final race of the weekend. What can Ian Tomlinson do? What is he thinking to go to the outside line and maybe sail by the two of them as they're embroiled in their own battle?
And now Ian Tomlinson gets involved because he's on the inside line of Jordan Johnson, but it is Hansey that's held on in all of that. So it's Hansey that leads side by side for second. It's almost more entertaining watching the BS Motorsport team on the pit wall than watching the cars on the circuit. But it's Ben Hansey who does lead. It's still from Johnson in second, Tomlinson in third, and Tomlinson's now looking to the inside of Johnson. So Johnson doesn't look like he's going to win this. He might not get second position, but it is Ben Hansey then who leads the way. He's managed to hold on in front of Jordan Johnson, and then Ian Tomlinson as they come into the final corner. It's Hansey then that's going to win two races today and become a three-time winner this season. He's already got his arm out of the window, and he is the victor. Second for Jordan Johnson, third for Ian Tomlinson. Oak Richardson takes fourth, but it's been a great season for the 5 Club Racing Championship with Switch. It's been some great action all season long, and this today in particular, Anglesey has been cracking stuff. Side-by-side action, slipstreaming action. As well. Lloyd Huggins took fifth, another good result for Lloyd. He beat Adrian Johnson and Matthew Pennefather-Nil. Martin Vernon was eighth. He just held off Matthew Short, who I think lost some time on the first lap. And Nico Favo completes the top 10, but absolutely great racing in this final race of the day, Johnny. Not necessarily anything caused there by the reverse grid. It was just once they got to the front, the battle between themselves. Well,
true. I mean, it was almost in two parts. You had the untangling that is naturally the result of a reverse grid, and the quicker cars should and will hopefully find their way through. But then we're left with the lead battle that we'd had pretty much all weekend. He sensed, because it's the last race of the weekend, that the sleeves were properly rolled up for that, and it did get a bit tasty at times up at Rocket. We never like to see contact, but there was definitely a slight collision there between Hansey and Jordan Johnson. But I think a deserved result, purely because of the speed that he's had all weekend. Jordan Johnson will be frustrated again, but he'll live to fight another day and look forward to the next round.
Results of the 6th round of the Switch MX-5 Cup by 5 Club Racing saw that victory for Ben Hansey, 8/10 of a second. Feels like a big gap after most of those last few laps of racing. Jordan Johnson took second and Ian Tomlinson third. Oak Richardson, best of the rest, in fourth again, ahead of Lloyd Huggins, who's had a good 27th birthday here at Anglesey. 6th for Adrian Johnson, 7th for Matthew Pennefather-Nil. Martin Vernon, Matthew Short and Nico Favo completed the top 10 ahead of David Brown, Jake Micklewright. Mary Barnard got herself up ahead of Steve Quemby at the end of the race. Martina Ward, Chris Moore and Neil Burrows completed the finishes, and again everybody who started made it to the end of the race in the Switch MX-5 Cup by 5 Club Racing. And the championship continues in a few weeks' time when, much like the Mazda 7s, the MX-5 Cup heads to Mallory Park on Le Mans weekend in June. So that'll be an entertaining few races, I suspect, there. Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit in July, so an exciting fixture there. So if you've got an MX-5 and you're watching from home, Brands Grand Prix circuit, you don't get to race there very often, but with the 750 Motor Club and 5 Club Racing, we can offer that to you this year. Snetterton, Silverstone and Donington Park will round off the season, but Johnny, your weekend of watching Mazda MX-5 racing, some people may say it's not entertaining, but what do you say to those?
Well, clearly that's the evidence to say absolutely the opposite. I'm only ashamed to say I won't be at Mallory Park. I have a clashing commitment, as you might have just alluded to, but otherwise I'd be straight there because Mallory's about 45 minutes from me. Oh well.
Thanks, Johnny. We'll talk to you for the two longer races as we go throughout the rest of the day. But Andy McEwen is downstairs. He's got, I'm sure, very pleased Ben Hansey, who took the race victory.
Well, third 5 Club MX-5 race of the weekend. We end up with the same top 3 as we had in race 2, but because of the reverse grid, it was anything but straightforward. Let's dive in. As usual, they're all busy chatting to each other, but it was Ben Hansey who came out on top for a second time this weekend. And Ben, the smile on your face, I think, tells the full story there. That looked fun.
Yeah, racing with your mates is always great, and that was proper elbows out stuff from both Jordan and Andy, and Ian set off like a scolded cat, and he's like, I think Jordan kind of let me do all the hard work to get through from the reverse grid, and I could see he was kind of waiting and biding his time and hoping that I'd done my tyres by the time we got to the front, and he had the run on me, but then he missed a gear coming out of Rocket 2, so yeah, I had a bit of a giggle to myself and brought it home.
A fantastic weekend for you. Obviously 2 wins, 3 podiums. More importantly, though, in a way, lots of good points.
Oh yeah, I suspect that puts me just in the lead of the championship, but it's early days yet, and with that amount of close racing, then it's going to be tight to the end.
Absolutely, we're going to be fascinated watching. Congratulations, Ben, on the win. Jordan is just behind us, so we'll just quickly swivel round and have a chat with our second place finisher again, Jordan. So nearly the race win. You were following Ben through the pack there, but when the chance came, you just couldn't quite get past him.
Well, I'd done all the hard work, I got the move done, and then I crunched into third, and that was game over from then. I'm sure Mr. Hansey had a great smile on his face because he knew he'd been gifted one again. But yeah, it was a great race. Always good racing with these two. Fair, bit of contact there, but nothing too serious, and good weekend.
Interesting tactics from you in that one too. As you said, you followed Ben through the field, and then when you broke through to the front, you were sort of content, it seemed, to sit behind him. Were you just biding your time, waiting for the last few minutes?
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't want to show my nose to him too early. I thought we'll get to the front and then we'll see if we can gap the pack a bit, and then we can start playing, because I think I went a lap too early and brought Ian back into it at the end there, so it got a bit more interesting than I wanted it to. But yeah, me and Hansey work well together, and I know what he's going to do. He knows what I'm going to do.
It's going to be a great year watching you two, that's for sure. Jordan Johnson then, second place, and well, once again, the nearly man of Anglesey and Tomlinson, another podium finish, but that one you were getting stuck in. Your start was fantastic.
Yeah, I sort of went for the outside at the hairpin, and yeah, I thought it was a bit of a gamble, but yeah, it seemed to work. And then I think Martin, my teammate, he was pretty kind to me and didn't hold me up too much, and yeah, it was a good start.
There was a brilliant moment when they just got past you, and I think just coming over the hill there into Siemens, you tried to make it 3 wide up the inside. You weren't giving up without a fight, were you?
No, you got to try, haven't you? But I like racing with these two. They're, you know, they're in control, and we can get close, but not, you know, not crash. So, yeah, I'll give it a go, but didn't work.